Welcome to part two. And I left off talking about my this young chap that lived. I went home for lunch with, and who was very angry. And I tried the same thing, and it didn't work for me. Um, and now and that was the nature of the beginnings of my stay in Nigeria. Um, Suffice to say that the English kids were obviously a bit weaker, or in a sense, and more controlled or reserved than, and definitely less aggressive than the Nigerian born and raised children. Um, and so, again, I was the timid. I was probably the weakest one in the group, to be honest. I was the softer one, if you want to put it that way. I don't know if I was weak, but I was very soft, and I used to get, bullied and slapped around by my neighbors, my friends, in the neighborhood, because I wasn't one to respond. I just didn't do the whole violence and stuff thing. It wasn't my thing. I just really believed in civility, and but I'm not airbrushing or anything. What I'm telling you as it really was and as it really is. No tricks, no exaggeration, nothing. Um, and so we started secondary school. Now in secondary school, there were three of us from my secondary school, including our ringleader. Uh, we started the same school, same day, same class, that sort of thing. And our school was, I don't know. I mean, I could look out at the back of my mum's bedroom window at the back of our house, and I'd look at my classroom. I'd see the whole school. So it was less than 5 minute walk. Put it this way: if you're walking very, very slowly, then it'd take you 5 or 7 minutes. Um, and it was a new school, so it had the infrastructure, but it had no walls. So you could just wander into the off the road into the compound and into school compound, and that was it. And that's how we went to school. We had a gate, but it didn't around the front, but didn't make sense to go around the gate when we could just walk in, off the road and get to class. And so we started school. I was quite timid in school as well, and uh, I think the seniors picked on that, because I remember they told me, one particular senior told me to go and get this thing called Arodon, and I was sent all over the place. I wasted a whole lesson going off to get this thing, and as soon as I get to the person who has it, he'd say, "Oh, it's over there," because I didn't understand what it was. I didn't understand the language too much then, and so that sort of thing went on. The other thing that sort of also went on was that I had sisters. I had a sister in secondary school as well, who was older than me, and she had some friends in the neighborhood, and they all sort of went to the same school, and they would have to walk past my school in the morning to go and get a bus to their school. And the seniors, I don't know, because my sister and I looked alike, or they kind of clocked that we were sisters, so they used to send me home with letters, you know, asking them out. And all these ladies, girls at that time, were quite rude. They send back all these letters with lots of abuse, and I'd get slapped around if I didn't come back with a favorable response. And I got slapped around quite a bit by my seniors, because not only did I come with a non-favorable response, but they got cursed out in the letter. So um, I was really getting it, but I wasn't a person to fight back or stand up for myself, or I just didn't. I just let things ride, to be honest, and and this sort of went on, and then it kind of um, progressed to a point where there were two of my classmates who would follow me home. Now, before I tell you this story, um, at the end of the school day, if you finished maybe a period early, which is one subject, which could be about 30 minutes or so, or 45 minutes, some people were bold enough to just walk out of the school and go home, without waiting for the bell to ring, that indicates that we can leave. Uh, and I was always too scared, even if it was 5 minutes to the bell. And my neighbors who were in my school, but they would just walk off, and leave and go home. I was just too scared, because I didn't want to get into trouble, you know. And so it was there was that kind of environment that I went to school in. But I had these two guys, and I guess they perceived I was as a bit timid and weak, and I used to get pushed around in school quite a bit too, and not just by my seniors but by my contemporaries. And so they used to follow me home and slap me around and kick me while I'm walking home. They kick me around the ankles, all the things I tried to avoid in football, and they would they slap me around the head, and they used to follow me halfway home. And you know, as an English kid, so I was like, "Oh, leave me alone," and I'm going to tell sir. In Nigeria, there's no sir. You've got to fight your corner. But I just wasn't given to that sort of response. So I just had to suck it up, basically. But then things began to escalate because we used to have on Wednesdays we used to have technical drawing, and you had to come with your math set. And in your math set, you've got your protractor and your compass. And they've both got sharp pointed points at the edge. They're like pins. They're thicker than pins, a little bit but they were sharply pointed at the bottom. And what these guys would do is, when I was going home and they'd come and they'd follow me, and they slap me around, they start to prod me and poke me in the head with these sharp objects, And obviously I had hair, I had an afro, but I would bleed, And I just didn't, I don't know why I didn't fight back or anything. I just used to say, "Oh, leave me alone," that sort of thing, and that just intensified things, uh, and that sort of thing was going on, and then I got into a fight. Now they had a thing called Bembo, and this is an arranged fight. This is where a place in the school where we go and settle disputes by fighting. And this chap, I don't know what the thing was, but one guy arranged the fight, and we had to go to the place to fight. Now, I grew up in England, so apart from watching maybe boxing matches, I used to watch a thing called, I used to watch wrestling. I used to watch a particular character called Big Daddy. And how they wrestled, was that one person would strike the other, and he'd wait, and the other would strike him back, and then he would strike back. It was a very gentlemanly affair. So when we got to the place where this fight was going to happen, I had that in mind. That I thought, well, I'll let him punch me first, and then I'll punch him back, and then he'll punch me, and I'll punch him. I wasn't quite sure how the whole thing was going to end, but that was what I had in my in my head. I hadn't heard of this little thing called rushing. So the guy who organized the fight, he's also the referee, and of course there was a crowd. He blew the whistle, and when the guy hit me the first time, the next thing he was just raining punches on me, and I was trying to hold him to say, "Hold on, let me punch you back." Literally, I really was. I couldn't understand why he wasn't. And I was, and the reason why I allowed him to punch me first, I was just being gentlemanly. I thought, well, let him get the first punch, and then I'll throw mine. So I thought it was going to be a very civil affair. I had no idea that there's this thing called rushing, and so I think they pretty much realized that I wasn't going to land a single punch because I was too stunned by the flurry of punches coming. I just stood there and I had no idea what to do next, And so they stopped the beating because you couldn't really call it a fight, and that went by. But something happened in school that changed the situation and changed me in particular. There was a situation, I can't go into details, but the bottom line is that I was treated disfavorably. Let me give you the tail end of the gist. The bottom line is that a fellow student, poo-pooed himself in the class. I don't know why he didn't go to the toilet, and all of that. And the next day, there was some doo-doo marks on his seat, and because it hadn't been cleaned, and Nigeria's hot, the class stunk of poo, and so when the teacher, the geography teacher, not geography, I think it was a geography, I can't remember now, a particular teacher, I think he taught French. Anyway, this teacher came to the class, and he knew that there was a smell, and and everybody sort of pointed to the seat, the guy who, whose seat it was, who did the doo-doo on the seat the day before. And for some reason, the man says that this guy who did the doo-doo should come and sit on my seat, and I go and sit on the doo-doo seat. I was like, hell to the no. So I said, no, I'm not. I said, no, I'm not doing it. I said, I'm not doing it. I said, why should I be the one to sit there? He didn't even say, take the chair outside and get another one and maybe wash it later. He said, I should go and sit there. And I said, no. So he asked me to come to the front of the class and kneel down, which I did. And, and he was teaching the class, but something just went off in my head. And I started to grumble while I was kneeling down. And of course, my grumbling, it wasn't loud, but it was audible. And so he told me to keep quiet, and I just thought I was being treated so unfairly. So I stated my case. I said, no, you're not treating me fairly, da da da, And I was just mumbling, and he was trying to teach class, and I just did not. I wasn't having it. I was kneeling down. I wasn't having it. But unfortunately, the teacher, of course, he was upset, and his attempts to silence me didn't yield any fruit. So he took a whip and he whipped me, and that really made me mad. And he went back to the desk and he was home, and I grumbled all the more when he whipped me. He whipped me twice, and he came back to whip me again. Now, I was kneeling down, he was standing up, so in trying to whip me, he would have to lean over, kind of, to get the full effect. He wanted to get me on my back, and I just slipped in a right uppercut. I just punched him, and then I got up, and we began to wrestle. I had him by the shirt, and he was tugging my shirt, and there was a lot of pushing, shoving, and kind of that sort of thing was going on. And it wasn't because I was trying to be disrespectful, but in that moment, I just had enough of all the rubbish that was going on with me, with all the nonsense people were trying to do with me, with the bullying, the bad treatment, the whole thing just came to a head. And then on top of this guy, this guy was trying to cheat me and to mistreat me. What I didn't know at the time was that the person who was asked to take my seat and I take his was the child of a commissioner. I didn't realize, I hadn't been long in the country, so I didn't realize, I hadn't grown enough to understand that, who your parents are has an impact, or who you are has an impact on how you can be treated sometimes. But even if I did know, I wasn't having it. I wasn't having it at all, and so there was this scuffle, and I tore his shirt, he ripped my shirt, the buttons came off and all of that, and eventually when I was able to disengage myself, I just walked out of the school and went home. And so I came back to the school the next day with my father. I went to see the principal, and I stated my case, and he had no rights to, and and actually that's where I learned that he was the commissioner's son and blah 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 blah. And then I understood the politics of who you are, or who your parents are. But I wasn't having it, and I was that sort of individual. In as much I wasn't one to fight and all that stuff, if I didn't believe in something, if something was wrong, when everybody kept silent, I'd be the one to say, actually, it's not, no, that's not right, that's not correct. And so that happened, and I think from there I began a change. I didn't realize it. And then one of the guys who used to poke me in the head on the way home with a protractor, I challenged him to a fight. And this time I was kind of ready. And I remember, it was a short fight because I think teachers had to run away or something. But I had kind of got a few punches in, and I remember that he came to school the next day, and he had plaster on his lips because I think I'd bust his lip from that, and then that happened, and so And then things, but it didn't stop there. Things escalated. Now I'm going to stop here because it's 15 minutes, and I don't want a long video. And I'll continue my next broadcast. Until then, shalom.